as we join James Hunt and Murray Walker.
In blistering heat here at Jerez, it is over 33 degrees, and aptly, the two men who are leading the rest of the grid, 23 of them, because only 25 start the Spanish Grand Prix. That's the second Grand Prix in succession that's happened, and the sad reason, of course, is that Martin Donnelly is in hospital. David Brabham has not been allowed to take his place, but I'm delighted to tell you that Martin Donnelly is making steady improvement. So Ayrton Senna, in his 50th pole position, is leading his rival for the World Championship, Alain Prost, around this extremely demanding and difficult circuit. The race is going to last over 1 3/4 hours. It's enormously demanding. This is where Senna beat Nigel Mansell in the past for one of the most exciting Grand Prix finishes ever, and we're expecting this one to be similar. So on the left in the front, Ayrton Senna. On the right is Alain Prost. Behind Senna is Mansell. Behind Prost is Alain, who has said that he's worried about getting round the first corner. He's obviously intending to make an absolutely lightning start, and that will be very shortly. You can see them coming out of the turn 16, the second degree hairpin. There is the course car and its companion behind. It's a 73-lap race, and the first man into the first corner is going to have a significant advantage. Go! And they get away together. They're all clear so far. It's Senna leading. Prost in second place. Alain is pushing hard, and he's lost it. He's out again. Alain's done it again. Out of the very first corner. Precipitate, stupid driving.
Yes, it was. It was entirely self-inflicted by Jean Alain there. He took a charge up the outside, took a big risk, couldn't get back onto the track, and where he put himself, he had no grip, and the spin-off was inevitable. A poor start relatively by Alain Prost. He got a lot of wheel spin there and didn't really move well. He got the clutch out well, he got the wheels alight, but he got too much wheel spin. Good steady start by Senna, and there is Alain, and that was a short race even by his recent standards.
Yes, and Ferrari, here's the replay.
Yeah, look at the smoke off Prost's rears, and he never got going as well. Senna has been a very, very consistent starter this season, particularly in recent races, and once again got the drop, got the power down better, but the two of them both made pretty reasonable starts. And there is Alain, right on the outside, no grip at all. He was off the racing line, and he'd even damaged that left rear, I think, on the curb.
And as Senna leads Prost, Alain, I remind you, is the man that Ferrari have paid an enormous amount of money for in next season, and they must be all even now wondering if the money was worth it. Mansell third, Berger fourth, Boutsen fifth, Patrese in sixth place. Over the line together go the McLaren and the Ferrari. Nigel Mansell in third position.
Yes, and already the two protagonists for the World Championship with a good lead, and Prost certainly in charging mood this time. Remember, to stay alive in the championship, Prost has to win this race, and already he's pressing Senna. He was over a second quicker than Ayrton Senna in the warm-up this morning, and certainly right now his Ferrari looks very good in the corners. He looks already to have a cornering advantage over Senna, but of course the old problem now, one more look at the start. Now Prost on the right as we look at it. Look at, oh, well, that was rather a quick start. Everybody started good. Now watch Alain coming up moving over to the outside, pushing somebody who I couldn't see who it was onto the grass, a Williams, and it was Patrese, but Patrese survived.
Yes, and now the race is on between Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. There are 18 points between them in the World Championship. If Senna wins today, he will win the World Championship. If Prost wins, it will still be alive. And that is Andrea De Cesaris out of the race. I hate to say it again, but a lot of people won't be too unhappy about that. As you can see, now Prost is really pushing Ayrton Senna, and Nigel Mansell is closing up on the Ferrari in front of him. Berger is fourth, and it's still the two Williams in fifth and sixth places as they come through to complete lap 2.
End of the second lap, Mansell now closing up, and Prost going out to have a look, but it's not going to be easy, and he's certainly hauling in the McLaren round the corners, and could clearly go substantially quicker if only he could find a way round. Senna, of course, well aware of that, Senna is not in a hurry. Senna knows that all he has to do is drive without making a mistake, do the corners neatly, get in carefully, and then power it out cleanly, and there's not a lot Prost can do against the power of his Honda engine.
On this very difficult to pass course, and it's lap 3 now in this 73 lap race. You see the first three, Senna, Prost and Mansell, McLaren, Ferrari, then the second McLaren of Gerhard Berger, 4th, Boutsen and Patrese in the two Williams Renaults, 5th and 6th, Nelson Piquet 7th ahead of his teammate Alessandro Nannini in 8th position, 9th is Derek Warwick, who has made up a place with the retirement of Jean Alesi. Derek started a very brave 10th on the grid with a problem car. It had strength and components fitted since Donnelly's dreadful crash on Friday, but it's a very, very brave Derek Warwick that's driving it in 9th position. Martini is 10th, Valeo is 11th, Gugelmin is in 12th position, and there are the leaders round the hairpin again to complete this, their third lap. And I'll give you the time between Ayrton Senna in the lead and Nigel Mansell, who is in 3rd position, 1.6 seconds. So Mansell is a previous winner, of course, in 1987. There's Berger, Boutsen, Patrese, Alain Prost won here in 1988, and Ayrton Senna has won twice, 86 and 89. So it's very much the top three men in the front of the Spanish Grand Prix around this very, very hard circuit. And at the present moment, they're coming up to the S's. They go into in 3rd gear, out of it in 4th. Prost closing up on Senna all the time. Now down to hairpin 2, which is where Stefan Johansson went off in the Ferrari some years ago. Out of hairpin 2, which is a 3rd gear corner, up into 4th gear, then into 5th, into the sweeping left-hander, then up into 6th gear. This is one of the fastest points of the course, 155 miles an hour. Turn 11, then down to Nito Bend, named after Angel Nito, the Spanish multiple world champion in the motorcycle racing world. On to Peluqui, the right-hander where they are now, and now they're coming up towards the Enzo Ferrari curve, and that is where Martin Donnelly had his major off, and they're round it up to the most difficult corner in Grand Prix racing, a lot of people say, the right-hander there, and now they're through to complete another lap, and it is still in the lead. Senna dogging his wheel tracks is Alain Prost. You can see that Nigel Mansell is dropping back a bit, and Senna and Prost have gone round in 128.1 and 128.07 respectively, compared with Nigel Mansell 128.2.
Prost is certainly really hugging the rear of Senna's car in a way that suggests that he's keen to try and get past as soon as possible. But so far, he really hasn't even been able to get alongside the McLaren or even to show him a front wheel. And there's Jean Alesi just walking back to the pits. I would think slightly chastened man, not as chastened as he might be, talking to Ken Tyrrell, coming to make his excuses. And with some, for Ken Tyrrell's satisfaction, it'd better be a pretty good excuse, but I don't think there is much excuse, really, for what he did. After all, these are long races, it's all very well being exciting, but you can't win a Grand Prix unless you're in it.
We haven't said it yet, we'll say it now, we're going to be saying it a lot more. This is going to be a tyre race. All the Goodyear runners, with two notable exceptions, have started off on the soft C compound, and the notable exceptions are Gerhard Berger in the McLaren, who is currently in 4th place, and Nelson Piquet in the Benetton, who is in 7th place, as the leaders come through to complete their 5th lap. There is going to be at least one tyre stop in this race, and we're riding now with Alain Prost chasing race leader Ayrton Senna up into the uphill turn, now out of it. I hope we see a lot more of this on-car camera, because both the McLarens and both the Ferraris have got them. Mansell fastest at the moment.
Yes, so let's hope we stay with a bit of Prost, because nobody could be closer to Senna's car. That would be the closest view we'd ever likely get of Senna following him round a lap. And Mansell keeping Prost well covered now. Mansell's just set the fastest lap of the race so far, but remember, of course, with the fuel load coming down, times will get faster and faster. At the moment, Prost is still very much stuck behind Senna. He looks very much quicker around the corners. The Ferrari appears to have a lot more grip. It's using less road, and he's being, if anything, held up, even though he's right in the disturbed air from Senna's car, which of course means his wings don't work as well. He doesn't get quite as much grip. There's a good aerial shot through the two very quick right-handers. And down to the hairpin. Now this, the final hairpin, is one place where Prost could look at having a go at Senna, but remember that Senna's only concern at the moment is covering Prost's move, or covering his own rear, protect himself from any attacks from Prost, and he'll be driving more on his mirrors than ahead, because, as I said before, he doesn't have to hurry, he doesn't have to go quickly. All he has to do is look after his tyres and make sure that he makes no little mistake, so that he's cleanly onto the power every time. And if he can do that, the Honda will do the rest of the work for him. Now, Prost closes right up on him here through the quick corners. But it's proving very difficult. Now, this is where Prost needs to get really quickly through the right-hand half of this here to try and get Senna under braking for the hairpin at the end of this little straight, but that's not close enough.
And Gerhard Berger in fourth place on the harder tyres, so he will be having less grip than Senna, Prost and Mansell in front of him. He's in fourth position, is now nearly 4 seconds behind Nigel Mansell in third place. And it is lap 7, Senna leading, you can see him there, Prost right behind him, there is Nigel Mansell third, Gerhard Berger, that nearly 4 seconds behind Mansell. Then it's Thierry Boutsen and Alain and Riccardo Patrese, 5th and 6th, the Williams twins again, and here is Stefano Modena in the Brabham retiring from the race. That's the third retirement. No, I apologise, it's Tarquini who was started in the spare car, because on the parade lap his AGS broke down and he had to run in carrying the seat and get in the spare. So that's the third retirement, and we are on lap 8 now. Already out are Alesi, Andrea De Cesaris, Gabriele Tarquini into the S's again and out of them. And it looks again as though it may well be either the Ferrari mechanics or the McLaren mechanics that win this Grand Prix for their team, because if the McLaren of Senna, the Ferrari of Prost and the Ferrari there of number 2 Nigel Mansell, driving in his last Grand Prix for the Italian team in Spain, and that is Stefano Modena, so that's a 4th retirement. Modena has spun off, and of course now you can't have a push start. But I was saying, if they stay as close as they are at the front now, just a second or two on the pit stop is going to make all the difference. We saw that in Portugal last weekend when Alain Prost's pit stop took 8.8 seconds compared with Ayrton Senna's 6.4, and those nearly 2.5 seconds made all the difference, because Prost came out of the pits behind Nannini, was held up for several laps, and that enabled Senna to get clear away. And he's actually increasing his lead a bit now. On lap 7 it was just over half a second. Here is the end of lap 8, and Prost has made up that time. It's still exactly the same. They're lapping marginally faster than Nigel Mansell. There he is behind them, keeping out of the turbulence of Alain Prost's Ferrari rear wing.
Yes, and this, of course, will help Mansell's tyres compared with Alain Prost, because by being in the turbulence of Senna's car, his car will slide about more, and that will increase the wear and tear on his tyres. So it may well be that Mansell can play a major part in the second half of this race. They will be changing tyres around 1/3, or just between 1/3 and 1/2 distance, no doubt. And as Murray's already quite rightly pointed out, this race is going to be very tactical on tyres, and could very well be won or lost on timing of pit stop, and also the speed as the crew can operate in the pits on getting the 4 wheels turned around.
And as you ride with Alain Prost and now look down at him chasing Ayrton Senna, just think of the conditions inside those driving cockpits. It's some 34 degrees now here outside. We are in an air-conditioned box and it's jolly hot, I can tell you. Alain Prost and Senna and Mansell and all the rest of them are wearing very, very heavy Nomex underwear down to the ankles, down to the wrists, socks, racing boots, triple layer overalls, a heavy balaclava helmet, heavy balaclava underneath the crash helmet, and in the cockpit the temperature could well be some 150 degrees. It's really, really tough. They lose an enormous amount of fluid and weight at the end of a race, and all the time they're fighting the car. They've got that 650 horsepower engine in the case of Alain Prost, the V12, in the case of Ayrton Senna in front of him there, the Honda V10, roaring away behind them, tremendous vibration, 4G forces on some of the corners, and that is why racing drivers have to be very, very fit. And this is lap 10, just under 1/7 distance of the race, with Ayrton Senna leading, Alain Prost 0.6 of a second behind him, Nigel Mansell 1 second behind Prost in third position. Gerhard Berger is dropping back all the time. It's 6 seconds now. In fact, Thierry Boutsen in fifth position is getting very close indeed to Gerhard Berger. Hopefully we'll see that soon. And Riccardo Patrese is hanging on to his teammate. So the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th between Berger, Boutsen and Patrese is very close indeed. 7th is Piquet, 8th is Nannini, 9th is still Derek Warwick.
And Prost has dropped back a tiny bit to Senna. Now, whether Senna has speeded up or whether, but certainly he's stretched them a bit because Mansell has dropped back. And that was a quicker lap from Senna. But it may well be that Prost has decided for the time being to just move back a few lengths in order to look after his tyres. I said a lap ago that he was working his tyres harder than he has to at this stage, but then when you're looking to pass, that's what you've got to do. But it does appear that he's dropped back. I would think that unless he's got a mechanical problem with the car, that is purely to give his tyres a bit of a break in order to mount an attack maybe 10 laps later or something like that.
Well, we've given Andrea de Cesaris a lot of stick in the past. I've maligned him this time. It was his teammate Emanuele Pirro that retired after Alain. So apologies to Andrea. Incidentally, you've seen Mansell dropping back. He's had the throttle mechanism on his Ferrari changed since the warm-up half hour earlier today, and that may have made some difference to the performance and the response of the engine to Nigel the driver. But Alain Prost is still holding on there, lap 11. And there's a couple of master tacticians out front there. Ayrton Senna on his way, he hopes, to his 27th Grand Prix win, which would enable him to match the record of the great Jackie Stewart. But Alain Prost will be doing his very best to stop him, because Prost has to win this race in order to stand a chance of going on to Japan and then subsequently to Australia if he wins in Japan, still in the lead in the World Championship. Senna gave a very emotional response to his 50th pole position yesterday. He said he felt it was one of the greatest pole positions of his life. And so now, with Alain Prost fastest at 107.54 miles an hour, the gap between himself and Ayrton Senna remains constant. Indeed, it's increased by 0.2 of a second. And you can see from that empty grandstand in the back, as Prost is getting closer and closer, that Grand Prix motor racing does not appeal to the Spaniards as much as Grand Prix motorcycle racing does. They had some 150,000 people here for the motorcycle Grand Prix earlier this year, and it looks so they got about 5,000 here today. It's an incredible situation because they're going to be watching one of the most exciting races of the year as it develops.
Well, if Prost was giving himself and his tyres a rest, it was a mighty short one, because he's right back now. Fastest lap on the lap after he dropped back to close back up again, fastest lap of the race so far, and he is really hounding Ayrton Senna. Whether this is entirely a good policy at the moment if he really hasn't got a way to try and get past Senna, but I suppose you've got to keep pressuring to try and force a mistake. Problem is, for him, is that there is no pressure on Senna. He's not in a hurry around the corners. He can afford to go into him slowly, and there you see when he gets on onto that Honda power with his right foot as they go out onto each straight, how the gap stretches away. Now Prost is right in his wheel tracks, and Prost, if he's going to do it, is going to have to go through this series of S's, and then there's a short straight down to hairpin 2, and that is a potential overtaking point, but he's not close enough here. Can he get the power on quickly? No, and that now they're on the brakes for hairpin 2, and really that has never really looked like being close enough to Ayrton at that point. So now around the long left-hander that they're about to go into, then the long right, then they have the two very quick rights, and Prost's car seems to be particularly good through those two, and he closes right up on Senna for the final hairpin at the end of the lap, but that's a very real shut your eyes and pray place to overtake.
Prost chasing his new chum, Ayrton Senna, because they made it up after the Italian Grand Prix, the bitter feud that they had had for 18 months, which started at San Marino last year, and they shook hands and embraced. And now Prost's feud is with Cesare Fiorio, the Ferrari team manager, who by implication Prost has been very virulent about, suggesting by implication that Ferrari could not organise themselves out of a paper bag in comparison with the McLaren team, which Alain Prost says is staffed by people who know what they have to do and do it, whereas Ferrari don't know what they have to do and don't do it. That's the gist of what Prost was saying, and it's led to a pretty warm atmosphere at Ferrari. And there's a warm atmosphere on the track. Prost pushing hard all the time. As James has told you many times, though, it's very, very hard, not only because their car's performance is identical, but because of this turbulence for the second man in a dogfight to get through, especially if the man in front is Ayrton Senna, one of the coolest and calmest of Grand Prix drivers, who knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows that if he just stays on the line, gets his braking right, accelerates at the right time, keeps cool, it's going to be virtually impossible for Alain Prost to get past him, and it's going to be very, very difficult indeed too for the Frenchman to pressure the Brazilian. We are on lap 13 out of 73, and Prost goes for it. Now he is in a good position, but Senna gets the power down, pulls away. That Honda V10 engine's torque is incredible. It's the Series 4 engine. Now we're with Prost again, going up into the uphill turn. This is the highest point in the course. They bear right here, third gear and then fourth, and you can see the McLaren getting closer and closer, and then it pull away a bit as Senna puts his foot down. Now up and round the right-hander, now the left, and then on to the S's. This is Tower Turn, and these are the S's. And now Prost closes right up. It's Senna, Prost, there's Mansell, third position, Berger is still fourth, but 7 seconds now behind Mansell. Then it's Boutsen and Patrese, and out has gone Satoru Nakajima. This is not Ken Tyrrell's day, both his cars out. Jean Alesi at the first corner, Satoru Nakajima on lap 15, and that is 5 retirements out of 25 starters.
Yes, and we've seen a couple of cars that have spun off. It'll be a big disappointment for the Tyrrell team. But one problem that this circuit develops, and it gets worse and worse as the race goes on, in that while the racing line stays clean, a lot of chunks of rubber, what is known in the trade, they're known in the trade as the marbles, and dust and stuff get really quite thick offline, and it really is like being on marbles. And so it becomes essential as the race wears on not to even put a wheel offline, which means the driving has to become relatively defensive. And we have in the past seen quite a lot of experienced drivers spinning off with errors because they're just getting a wheel offline.
Lap 16. Senna, Prost, Mansell, fascinating. Mansell has closed up a bit on Prost. He's under a second behind now. That caption is a bit out of date. Berger is still fourth, so it's McLaren, Ferrari, Ferrari, McLaren. Then the two Williams Renaults, and that was Satoru Nakajima, well, that is Satoru Nakajima, sadly walking back to the Tyrrell pit to join Lacey. It's an early bath for the Tyrrell team today, and we are on lap 16 in this 73-lap race. And really, it's the three cars at the front that the race is all about, because unless Gerhard Berger can benefit from his decision to fit a harder compound tyre when Senna, Prost and Mansell have to come in to change their tyres, it looks as though these three are going to dominate to the end.
Yes, and the starting of Gerhard Berger on the harder tyre was very much a tactical decision by the McLaren team. They did it in Portugal, and basically it was really to cover the risk that the softer C compound tyre just might not work. So Berger has in a way sacrificed his race a little bit in order, because for sure the hot favourite to be the right tyre for the race was the C compound, but in order to cover it, because remember that McLaren need to stop Prost winning, even if and therefore if these had been the right tyre or turn out to be the right tyre, then Berger is there to step in and take over from Senna, because it's important to McLaren to stop Prost winning, because that's the only way he can stay alive in the championship.
He's in a position to do it now, but first of all, he's got to get past Senna. There's the numbers: Senna 27, Prost number 1 in second place, Mansell number 2 in third position, and in fourth position number 28, Gerhard Berger.
What is very interesting now is that the lap times have come down quite substantially, which means the tyres are already going off, and they are now lapping at least a second a lap slower, certainly, than Prost could lap. On fresh tyres he'd be even quicker than that, and it could be a clever tactical decision that certainly Prost should be considering, is to stop now and then stop again later.
Yes, the fastest lap so far is Prost 127.7, and Prost's last lap was 129.4, so not all that far off, 2 seconds a lap slower. Yellow flag being waved in the background there, I don't know why. That means a warning to the cars that are following, but Senna and Prost together into the uphill turn again. Mansell is 1.6 seconds behind Prost now, and lapping slower, marginally so, than his teammate. Still Berger fourth, 6.6 seconds, so Berger has closed the gap a little to Nigel Mansell, with Boutsen and Patrese separated by 1.5 seconds in 5th and 6th places. Piquet is just behind Patrese in 7th place, Piquet in the Benetton. Nannini, Piquet's teammate, is 8th. Derek Warwick is still there in the Lotus in 9th position, ahead of Martini, 10th. Alio, the Frenchman, in the Ligier, driving his last race for Ligier in Spain. And incidentally, Thierry Boutsen has now signed for the Ligier team for 1991 and 1992, which compounds a lot of people's belief that the place in the Williams team that Thierry Boutsen has vacated will be taken by Nigel Mansell, but there is still no positive news on that. And so, behind Nannini in 9th place and Warwick, it's Martini in 10th position in the Minardi, then Philippe Alliot. Gugelmin, the Brazilian in the Leighton House car, is 12th. Suzuki is in 13th place. 14th is Eric Bernard. 15th is Ivan Capelli. The leaders complete another lap, and that was a quick one by Ayrton Senna, well outside the fastest lap of the race, but faster than Prost and Mansell following him, and Prost has immediately closed the gap. And gone are the days when the two McLarens together strode out in front of the field, because it's Ayrton Senna who is upholding the honour of McLaren at the moment, with Berger still in 4th position.
Yes, I really feel that Prost should make a stop now, because he really doesn't look like passing Senna, and if he follows him all the way to the pit stop, he doesn't make a better stop with the Ferrari team than Senna. And to be fair, the McLaren team are confident, they're relaxed, and much more likely to make a good stop under pressure than Ferrari. then he's just creating the same situation again. If he stops, if he waits till the right time, and I honestly believe the Ferrari is that much quicker. If he nicked on a set of fresh tyres now, when Senna stops, Prost, because of the new tyres, would end up well ahead on the road, and then could, because the Ferrari chassis is working better, could then build the extra lead he needs to give him the cushion to make the second stop and still come out in front of Senna.
Lap 19, it's not going to happen this lap because the entrance to the pits is before the hairpin, which precedes the start and finish straight that they are on now. They being Senna, Prost, Mansell, who are separated by 2.3 seconds, first to third. You're seeing now that the statements we've made earlier about how difficult it is to pass at Jerez were very true. There's only one line around this circuit, and that is a criticism, I suppose, not only of Jerez, but a lot of other Grand Prix circuits. Indeed, Hungary has been given an instruction by FISA, the governing body of motorsport, to modify their circuit before 1991 so that it is easier for drivers to get past. At the moment it's virtually impossible, and the same applies to Jerez, which you may say is not very smart. So there's Mansell. He's got a clear track behind him. No change for the first three, the first four, the first six, in fact. And now there are the McLaren mechanics, and they're right opposite us now. It may be that a pit stop's coming up.
In fact, I think Piquet has just passed Patrese into sixth place, in fact, Murray, round the back.
Yes, in fact, as I look across now and you watch Senna and Prost, the McLaren mechanics are ready to change tyres, the Williams mechanics are ready to change tyres, and so too are the Benetton mechanics. Over the line they come and into the pits. It's Nigel Mansell. Nigel Mansell must have heard James's advice to Prost, and so this is the first major tyre stop. Nigel Mansell on lap 21, 8.6 seconds, not particularly brilliant. It's a fantastic speed time to change four wheels and tyres, but not in Grand Prix terms, when you recall that Ayrton Senna, the man that you are watching now, as out of the pits goes Riccardo Patrese. Ayrton Senna did it in 6.4 seconds in Portugal.
Very good stop by the Williams team, that was. I didn't time it, but it was just very efficient. They turned him round really fast on Patrese.
Senna and Prost still lead. And now Gerhard Berger is up into third place. Boutsen is up into fourth. Piquet is up into fifth. And Nannini is up into sixth. Nigel Mansell has rejoined in seventh position. Now the race is going to get more and more interesting, particularly when we have resolved whether Ayrton Senna or Prost come in first.
Yes, well, if Senna does come in first, Prost may have to stay out for another lap or two just to see how much quicker he can go by himself, because he certainly can go markedly quicker than he's going at the moment, and it may be, well, they passed the pit entrance once again. The McLaren team are ready, the Ferrari team are also, but they've still got their tyres in the warmers. For Prost's tyres are still in the warmers, and McLaren's have Senna's tyres, well, they have a set of tyres, be it for Senna or Berger, undressed.
Yes, and it's Berger into the pits. Now, this is surprising because Gerhard Berger coming into the pits on lap 22 started on the harder compound, and that is a sensational stop, 5.85 seconds, but we expected Gerhard Berger to be staying out on the hard compound tyres to act as a cover for Senna, who has still got to come in, as has Prost.
I think what they may be doing, Murray, it may have been again a tactical thing by the McLaren team. I'm only guessing here, but they want to see how much quicker how much help new tyres are going to be. So I think they want to use Gerhard Berger for learning, for information.
And it may conceivably be the same situation with Nigel Mansell, as out goes one of the Lolas. It's Eric Bernard out of the Spanish Grand Prix. That is the sixth retirement. Alain is out, Pirro is out, Tarquini is out, Modena is out. So is Nakajima, and now Eric Bernard. 19 cars left running. These are the two that matter as you look down at Bernard parking his car.
Yes, well, looking down at the pits bears out what my suggested theory, because McLaren's are not yet getting a set of tyres ready for Ayrton Senna, which suggests that they want to look at Berger's lap times for 2 or 3 laps before they make any decisions. And I think that Prost has probably missed the chance to get the jump on Senna. He should have gone when I first started talking about it, or within a couple of laps of those, and that was on about lap 16. We're now on lap 22, and I do believe that Prost has his tentativeness tactically could well be costing him this Grand Prix. It certainly cost him any chance in the Portuguese Grand Prix, apart from after the drama at the start with Mansell and the various other things. He still could have easily won that race if he'd taken the initiative over the pit stops and Ferrari had turned him round quickly. As it was, he blew it, and it looks like he's trying to do the same again here.
Lap 23, Senna leads Prost out of the pit sprints Martini, and it's Boutsen up into 3rd position now, with Berger having stopped and Mansell having stopped. Piquet is 4th, Mansell is up into 5th position, Warwick is now in the points in 6th place, but has not stopped 4 tyres. 7th is Berger, who has stopped 4 tyres. 8th is Alain, 9th is Nannini, 10th is Gugelmin, 11th is Suzuki, and we are with Prost, still chasing Ayrton Senna, and surely coming in soon.
And that's Alboreto coming in the arrows. Just wondered if he was coming in a bit slowly then, but no, that looked like at full speed. And that was good pictures there from Senna's car, and then switching on to Prost. So we had a good look at the leaders' views. And over the line, the 2 leaders have just gone to complete 23 laps, with Prost right up with Senna. And I'm just looking at lap times now behind, but certainly Prost and Senna not going particularly quickly.
And Piquet right up with Boutsen, so it's as close for 3rd and 4th as it is for 1st and 2nd.
And the new tyres there, and Lotus and Derek Warwick in the pits drove superbly in qualifying yesterday, going very well in the warm-up, and the Lotus a little bit of a worry, but Warwick putting that out of his mind. Now, the new tyres have had their effect. Nigel Mansell has put up a new fastest lap. He is in 5th place with 6 seconds of clear road in front of him, and as he's got back markers behind Piquet, who's in 4th, and the race is speeding up. And there's the caption for Mansell's fastest lap so far. Just about a second off Ayrton Senna's old lap record.
And that was Nicola Larini that you saw in the pits. Mansell then 126.9, Senna's lap record 125.8, and Senna's pole time yesterday as a puff of smoke from Alain Prost's rear tyres. They're going through to complete another lap. This will be the 24th lap. And you're with Senna now, clear track in front of him, looking through the McLaren camera, now with Prost looking at Senna.
Yes, and Prost and Mansell certainly benefited largely from new tyres, but I'm looking back, I'll be interested to see the Berger's lap time. Now, Berger set his fastest lap of the race on the previous lap. Let's see if he can settle at a quick time. And Berger was about a second quicker than Senna. Berger's due through at any moment, and Berger again a new fastest lap for himself, and much quicker, 2 seconds quicker than Senna and Prost. So Prost must go to the pits now.
But I think Senna is going to the pits now, because I have seen Joe Ramirez in the McLaren pit area clearing everybody away to enable Senna to get a clear run in.
I think they're going to come together because Ferrari have got Prost tyres ready, so let's watch them now. Senna round. Senna and Prost right together round the back of the circuit. They've got 2 right-handers. There's a yellow flag right out on the far side of the circuit where they are now, but it doesn't seem to have bothered them around the double right-hander. Now they come to the 2 quick ones, and Prost is right behind Senna. Now, if they come into the pits together, Prost, it's going to be very difficult for him to get out ahead of Senna, because Senna will be making a move to leave at the same time, and they could actually make contact in the pits. So Senna has stayed out, and in comes Prost. So Prost on his own into the pits.
Well, here we go, and over the line goes Ayrton Senna. Now, this is the critical one. We'll be able to compare the times now. Alain Prost in the Ferrari. They've got to keep cool. If you get a sticking wheel nut, he'll be in trouble. Good. 6.17 seconds, Alain Prost, and that was on lap 25. Now, Senna is leading. Piquet is in 2nd position because of the tyre stops, 11 seconds behind Senna. Prost has gone into the pits. Mansell is in 4th position. Thierry Boutsen too has changed tyres and is in 6th position ahead of Nannini. So is Alain Prost with just over 6 seconds going to be able to get ahead of Senna when he comes in. There he is.
Well, he's got a clear road, Prost, for about 2 laps, because Piquet is about a couple of seconds ahead of him, but Piquet may well clear that road because he hasn't yet been in for tyres. Now, looking at the Benetton pit, because we are happily very well placed here, bang opposite the pit, they've got their tyres for Piquet, but they're still in their warmers, and so he's not coming in just yet. Now, Prost will hope that Senna doesn't pit now. He'll want to get some advantage on that fresh rubber. Because if Senna can get out ahead of him, even if he's sliding about and on coldish tyres, hasn't settled in, he'll hold Prost up and he won't let him by.
Yeah, and Senna's been held up, but he comes into the pits now, and the significant thing is that Piquet, who will go into the lead, is on B tyres, the harder compound. Now, here is Senna. Watch him. Watch when he stops. Now, and the McLaren mechanics attack the wheels with the pneumatic air wrenches, and that looks like, oh, superb! Ayrton Senna, 5.7 seconds.
And Prost and Mansell go through ahead of Senna, and Mansell what was that, Prost? It's difficult to tell now. And Senna barged his way by one of the Ferraris, and I suspect it was Prost, because Prost was the one behind.
It was Nigel Mansell, and it is Alain Prost leading now, and there is Nigel Mansell. It is Ferrari, McLaren Ferrari, Prost, Senna, and Mansell. Now, here's a replay of Senna leading the pits.
Yes, and you see Mansell letting Prost go. This is Prost we're looking from, and that was tremendous team driving by Nigel Mansell, who then did his best to halt Senna's progress, and that was tremendous stuff. Nigel Mansell sacrificing, remember, he was actually leading the Grand Prix for a brief time, and he was prepared to give that to Prost, and that was marvellous team stuff and very generous by Nigel Mansell.
So Mansell has stopped for tyres, so has Patrese, so has Berger, so has Derek Warwick, and Prost, and Ayrton Senna. We are on lap 27 in this 73-lap race. They may well be making another stop, but at the moment, there it is.
That was the leader you just saw, because Nelson Piquet, who hasn't stopped, has now found himself in the lead, and Prost will haul him in very fast. Let's have a look at Prost's lap time now as they cross the line. Complete 27 laps. And Prost at 27.2. And he's pulled away from Senna already, second and a bit. But he'll want to dispatch Piquet or get past him or hopefully get Piquet in, and that looks like the Cesaris's car with bodywork off, so that looks fairly terminal. And he will not be missed if he's out of this race. He caused tremendous trouble yesterday in qualifying. He brake tested or moved over on Berger, who was on a quick lap in qualifying when De Cesaris was hardly moving, and brought Berger close to a very, very big accident indeed, and Berger was not at all a happy man. It really was spectacularly stupid driving, and once again he underlined the fact that he has no business in Formula One.
And Nelson Piquet leads Alain Prost on lap 28, and Prost has got to get past the Brazilian and his Benetton Ford car to try and build a cushion between himself and Senna, who is third. Mansell is fourth, Berger is fifth, and Nannini is sixth.
Well, Prost will be a lot quicker than Piquet probably with the C tyres, the fresh tyres on, but you'd find Piquet extremely difficult to pass because the Benetton is nothing if not quick in a straight line. It'd be very similar to the McLaren Honda, but Prost could rely possibly on one thing. If Piquet knows that Senna is behind him for the championship, Piquet hates Senna so much he may well let Prost by and then do his best to hold Senna up because he really hates him. And Prost looking for the way, and he will be desperately hoping that Piquet is in form, because I'm sure if Piquet knew what the situation was, he would let Prost go. 1:26.519, Alain Prost, and that is
under 0.8 of a second off the lap record as Piquet goes through and laps the notorious Olivier Griard, who tends to be another mobile chicane. And Piquet, the Brazilian, leading a Grand Prix for the first time for a very long time. 3 times world champion Nelson Piquet leads 3 times world champion Alain Prost. Piquet, his championships for Brabham and Williams, of course, and Alain Prost for McLaren.
And that's a Benetton. Is that Piquet adrift? Well, I really couldn't see what happened there, but that does look... Nope. And that we think was an Nannini, but we really didn't see very clearly what happened then. Here is the replay. It's Piquet going wide, and that puts Prost through into the lead, and Prost will be well pleased with that, because he can now, and I think that was probably the pressure from Prost, who's on fresh tyres and going really quickly. And now, as you saw the McLaren then, the Ayrton Senna just going through. Now Prost 4 seconds in front of Ayrton Senna as they cross the line that time. Prost will want to build that lead. I'm sure he will want at least 20 seconds. He really will want to build enough of a lead, probably more like 25 seconds, so that he can do his tyre stop and hope, even if Senna doesn't, to get out still in front of him.
Lap 30 as the Lola comes into the pits. Here is the position. Alain Prost is leading the Spanish Grand Prix on lap 30 out of 73 by 4.1 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna, who is 3.6 seconds ahead of Nelson Piquet, who you just saw go off. Nigel Mansell is third, 3.5 seconds behind Piquet. Gerhard Berger, having changed tyres like all the leaders, is in 5th position, 1.2 seconds behind Mansell. And you're looking at the race leader, Alain Prost, now. In 6th position, it's Nannini. 7th is Boutsen. 8th is Gugelmin. 9th is Patrese. 10th is Capelli. 11th is Martini. Derry Warwick, still going strong in the Lotus, has dropped down 3 places, but of course he has changed tyres, whereas some of the people in front of him have not, as Prost goes through to complete his 30th lap.
Yes, and Prost with a clear road now, no Piquet in front of him, and a new fastest lap of the race, and that comes as no surprise. And Senna absolutely could not respond to that. Senna now 2.5 seconds. Prost pulled on Senna on that one lap. 6.6 seconds. And this certainly is what Prost wants. Now, bear in mind, though, that Senna is almost certainly not going to put himself out to really try and chase Prost. He knows that the Ferrari will be hard to beat here, particularly now that it's in front. Senna, his main concern will have to be with second place, because if Senna can come second behind Prost today, it means that he needs just 1 point out of 2 more races to win the championship. And Senna also firmly believes that a Ferrari is not going to finish 3 races, let alone win them, and Prost has to do that anyway. Well, he's well on the way towards winning this one now. He's in a very commanding situation. On the other hand, we haven't yet reached half distance, but for speed, if he has no more mechanical problems and his tactics are reasonably competent, then he must surely win today. But there are 2 more. Suzuka particularly is a hard circuit on the cars. It's fast, it tests them in every department, and Senna has said that he doesn't think a Ferrari can finish, or one Ferrari can finish 3 races on the trot. I think that's probably a little bit presumptuous of him. I agree they're not favourite to do that, but it's the sort of presumption that can cost you. But Senna has also stated that he will be well happy with Prost first and him second today. So he will defend now, and for sure now he's driving for second, to be just 1 point away from his championship.
Alain Prost, race leader, coming up to lap, and as soon as possible he hopes Yannick Dalmas in the second AGS. This is the first Grand Prix this year where both AGS started. Tarquini, who didn't last very long, he was the 3rd retirement, and Yannick Dalmas, who's recovered well from Legionnaire's disease the year before last, which dragged him down for a long time, is still going, and it's Prost leading Senna now by 8.2 seconds as Prost goes through and takes Dalmas and laps him. Piquet is 5 seconds behind Senna in third position. Nigel Mansell is coming up fast, though. He is lapping faster than Nelson Piquet, who is third, and is now only 1.3 seconds behind the Brazilian. Fifth is Gerhard Berger, sixth is Nannini, seventh is Boutsen, and eighth is Gugelmin, as confirmed by the numbers along the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, so at the moment Prost is really in command of this race. He's lapping a second and a half quicker than anybody else on the circuit, the next two being Senna and Mansell. And his lead is already over 8 seconds. Now he just crossed the line again, and I'll see, and De Cesaris is looming. And this could be a problem for Prost. The lead 9.2 seconds, and the fun starts now because De Cesaris is in front of Prost.
Yes, and are there going to be two tyre stops in this race? It's by no means impossible. And if there are people out there who think, my goodness, can't they make a set of tyres that will last the race? Of course there are, but the softer the tyres are, the better they will grip, but by the same token, the shorter they will last. So it's all a compromise, and that's Gugelmin in the Leighton House in his pit for tyres.
No, I don't know why we're looking at an uninteresting pit road when we've got Prost and De Cesaris together, but I think in the distance, it's hard to see with the naked eye that Prost had got through. Yes, and Prost is past De Cesaris and storming away, so he'll be breathing a huge sigh of relief that he didn't get held up for too long, only through 3 or 4 corners, which by De Cesaris' standards is quite an improvement on anything up to 3 or 4 laps, if he can possibly manage it.
Well, Ayrton Senna now, like Alain Prost, is on his 33rd lap, and the interest in terms of close competition on the circuit is the battle for third place, which we're not actually seeing at the moment, as you watch Senna, who is second, and between Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell. Now, Prost has increased his lead on this, the 34th lap over Ayrton Senna, to very nearly 10 seconds. He's lapping nearly a second a lap faster than the Brazilian, and Piquet and Mansell go through virtually together. That's third and fourth. Berger is fifth, Nannini is in sixth position, and Boutsen is in seventh place. So it's McLaren in second position behind this Ferrari of the 3 times world champion Alain Prost, who knows all too well that he's got to stay in front and win this race. He was bitterly hurt after Portugal, I think that's one way of putting it, at having his chances of winning there from second on the grid alongside Nigel Mansell chopped off, literally, when Nigel Mansell nearly lost control of his Ferrari and almost went into the pit wall and blocked Alain Prost's progress, and Prost gloomily conceded the World Championship to Ayrton Senna after Portugal. But then, after he'd had a go at Cesare Fiorio, his team manager, Mr. Fusaro, who is the head man of Ferrari, one of the top men of Fiat, came down to Spain and had a talk with Prost, who emerged from it vowing that he would fight to the last turn of his Ferrari wheel to retain the World Championship that he won in 1989. In order to do that, he's got to win here, and Japan, and Australia, the 500th Grand Prix of the World Championship Series in Adelaide, and he's certainly doing the best he can and doing brilliantly at the moment. As you look at Nelson Piquet, and you should see behind him Nigel Mansell, you did. This is the battle for third. The much experienced Brazilian Ayrton Senna, who has scored the second highest number of World Championship points of all Grand Prix drivers, second only to race leader Alain Prost, 3 times world champion Piquet. There behind him is the Ferrari, and the Benetton with its Ford V8 engine is proving to be extremely nimble and very reliable this year, because Piquet, 5th position in the World Championship, has only failed to win one race, and that was when he was disqualified in failed to finish in one race. That was when he was disqualified in Monaco. Otherwise, he's been in the points in every race except one. And Alessandro Nannini has had a good year too. We are on lap 35, which is getting on for half distance. Half distance is 36.5 laps, to be pedantic. And Alain Prost leads Ayrton Senna by 11.2 seconds. He's lapping lap after lap faster than the Brazilian. Piquet, another Brazilian, is third, 7 seconds behind Ayrton Senna. And just ahead, as you can see, of Nigel Mansell as they exit the hairpin turn 16, up into 5th gear, then 6th, to go over the line at 150 miles an hour.
Yes, and Piquet now some 20 seconds, just about 20 seconds behind Alain Prost, who is really pulverizing this field at the moment. He's still storming away from Ayrton Senna in second place. The lead now 13 seconds. And that averages something like a second and a half or better since their pit stops. Mansell, I'm sure, if he can find a way around Piquet, will be able to go a fair bit quicker, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if he could then start to mount a challenge on Senna's second place, and that would certainly be good for both Ferrari, and it would be a good reward for Mansell if he can get past Senna and take second place in this race, because remember, he quite selflessly sacrificed his lead in the race for Alain Prost through, and that, sadly for him, because of Senna's proximity, left him getting barged out of the way by some very good opportunist driving by Senna, but it was unlucky for Mansell, because he was doing the right thing, but Senna was a bit too close to him. As a result of that, Mansell found himself behind Piquet. He's now got to fight his way past that, and then he's Piquet, and then of course he's got to first of all catch Ayrton Senna and then get past him. So he's got plenty of work to do, but it would be well deserved for Mansell if he, after his great sacrifice for Alain Prost, then if he could get into second place, which would of course keep the championship even further open.
Now let's watch this, James and everybody. I'm going to stick my neck out and say I think Ayrton Senna may have a problem, because he's now 14.5 seconds behind Prost, and he is only 5.8 seconds ahead of Nelson Piquet, who is less than a second ahead of Mansell. So we'll watch this man's progress very carefully. Ayrton Senna in second place and dropping back.
Yes, and Piquet and Mansell are actually catching Senna, but I don't think he's got a problem. I think maybe the McLaren is quite hard on these tyres, and he had to storm away at the beginning, and of course if you attack these tyres when they're very fresh on, they've got more rubber, therefore they build more heat, so there's no wear on them, and of course once you've got them too hot, they don't really cool down, especially if you're out there racing on them. So it may be that Senna damaged his second set of tyres, but this is very much the same sort of time, or a bit quicker because of the fuel load, than he was doing once his first set had settled. And I think he hasn't dropped off performance enough to think that maybe he's lost a gear or got some other problem. Maybe just the balance isn't quite as good on this set, and they're hurting him a bit. No, because there goes Senna, and there were Piquet and Mansell in the background, just coming round the hairpin. And the gap to them now 5.5 seconds. Senna to Piquet. Mansell attacking Piquet from behind.
Prost is certainly pulling away. He's lapping 2 seconds faster than Senna consistently, and Piquet and Mansell are lapping faster than Senna ahead of them, who is second, but only 0.4 of a second faster on the previous lap. So Alain Prost now getting up towards this 20-second ideal cushion that James was talking about, because it's 16.6 seconds, is controlling the race from the front, must be praying for Ferrari reliability. You saw that stab of flame from the back of the V12 car that worried us in Portugal, but it seems, touch wood, to be all right, and Ferrari lovers will be hoping he stays right where he is.
Yes, actually, it's not Portugal, Murray. It's been puffing flame from time to time all season, the Ferrari engine, or certainly for some races. I don't know why that is with an atmospheric engine, but maybe a little bit of fuel is escaping when the throttle's shut down into that. That, of course, isn't fuel. That's sparks that you're seeing. That is the flame from the exhaust, but before that, on the straight, that was sparks from the under tray as the car's bottoming. Remember, for aerodynamic advantage, they run these cars with their tummies virtually scraping along the ground, and although the suspension's very stiff, over the bumps they do touch, and there are the sparks.
Piquet is definitely catching Senna. Senna is 18 seconds behind Prost. Piquet is now 4.3 seconds in third place behind his Brazilian rival. And there is Piquet ahead of Nigel Mansell. The gap between Senna, Piquet and Mansell is just about 5 seconds.
Yes, and we're now comfortably past half distance. Piquet has made no move to go to the pits for tyres. The Benetton team are making no preparations that I can see, and therefore quite clearly he's going to try and go the race. Now, I would be surprised if he doesn't get a drop-off of performance from his tyres later in the race, even though they are the harder compound. You'll see that McLaren certainly felt that was the case by running Berger, and they were always planning to stop him even though he was on the harder compound. But it looks as if Benetton want to get Piquet to go the distance, and that won't please Mansell, because the easiest way to get past somebody is for them to peel off into the pits and let you by. So Nigel is going to have to work hard, because the Benetton is very similar in straight line speed performance to the McLaren, and we've seen how the Ferraris struggle on the straights against the McLarens, and it's the same sort of story for Nigel when following Nelson Piquet.
Great drive by Alain Prost, convincingly ahead on his 40th lap. 21 seconds ahead now of Senna, and Senna has got Piquet 2.4 seconds behind him, and Mansell is under half a second behind Nelson Piquet. Hopefully we'll soon be seeing a shot with Senna in the McLaren, Piquet in the Benetton, Mansell in the Ferrari, together in second, third and fourth places, 22 seconds behind this man, race leader Alain Prost, lap 40.
Yes, I think Senna lost extra time that lap. It was certainly a really slow one by him, but I think he passed the back marker. If he didn't, then we have to surmise that he's got some minor mechanical problem.
Senna can actually add to his World Championship score of 78 points from 11 races by finishing second and dropping, and he's pointing, we're riding with Senna. He made a sign there, and he actually signed Nigel Mansell to go through in Portugal. I only caught the tail end of it as we switched to ride with Ayrton Senna, but right behind him, with Prost having completed his 40th lap, is Nelson Piquet. There is the Benetton, there is the Ferrari. Now, we'll give you the intervals. Prost has gone through now, and as Ayrton Senna goes over the line, the gap between Prost and Senna, first and second, is nearly 24 seconds. The gap between Senna and Piquet is 2 seconds. Between Piquet and Mansell, I don't need to give you a time, because you can see for yourself. You're looking now at the Spanish Grand Prix at Jarama with Ayrton Senna fighting for the World Championship, ahead in second place of Nelson Piquet there, and Nigel Mansell there in the Scarlet Ferrari. They are on lap 41. And Prost, meantime, hasn't got the problem that these three have got. Senna is soon going to have to worry about keeping Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell behind him. Nigel Mansell knows that if he can get ahead of Piquet and then ahead of Senna, and there's nothing he would like more, he will be up into second place and making things a lot easier for Prost.
That's right, that certainly helps the championship situation for his teammate Alain Prost, and it's very important. But now Senna is certainly struggling, whether it's just that he's either hurt his second set of tyres by attacking them a little bit too hard, because he had to when he came out of the pits. He was in a tight situation. There was that bit of flame out of Prost's car again, but we've learnt over the season that really doesn't seem to be a problem. It doesn't seem to be reporting any sort of mechanical drama in the Ferrari. There goes Benetton, Piquet, see Senna ahead of them. But Mansell, now that his tyres have settled, he doesn't seem to be pressuring Piquet quite as effectively as he was before, and maybe his tyres aren't quite as good. But he'll be winning Piquet forward to get onto Senna's tail.
Incidentally, I do know that I am at Jerez and not Madrid, and that the Grand Prix, and through goes, there we are, Nigel Mansell up into third position ahead of Nelson Piquet. Now he's going to set about Senna.
And that looks very much to me as if Piquet allowed Mansell to go then. He just dipped off the line momentarily. I didn't see any signal, but I think that was conceding to Mansell. It may mean that Piquet has had enough of the tyres he's got, but if he is going to change tyres, it's really a bad compromise to decide to do it now.
Well, Ferrari finished first and second at Mexico. Are we going to see that here at Jerez for the Spanish Grand Prix? Prost is on his 43rd lap now, and out of the race has gone Pierluigi Martini for the same reason that a lot of them have. He's spun off, he's got his rear wheels onto the gravel bed. You're not allowed to push start these days, so he's out of the race to join Jean Alesi, retired, Pirro, Gabriele Tarquini, Stefano Modena, Nakajima, then Nicola Larini, who's actually rejoined the circuit. It's De Cesaris, and that in the pits is Dalmas.
Yes, in fourth place, not too far. And where's Piquet gone? Piquet coming in slowly, so I think Piquet got a problem, possibly. Piquet into the pits, and it's... Well, they're certainly doing a tyre change, whether that's all it was. And no, there's talk around the car. No, he's got a mechanical problem. That was why he did let Mansell go. And but right behind, not very far behind, 4 seconds behind Mansell, Berger is coming under enormous attack from Sandro Nannini in the Benetton. And behind them is Boutsen, and only 5, so there's a 3-car battle behind, Berger, Nannini and Boutsen, and then Patrese just 6 seconds behind them. So this race, behind Prost, who's got an imperious lead at the moment, some 27 seconds, and still lapping way quicker than anybody else on the circuit. But behind them is Senna with a little bit of air before Mansell, who in turn has a little bit of air to Berger, then 3 cars, so we've really got 5 cars, 6 cars with Patrese just 5 seconds behind that group, all very close together, and there's a lot of racing to go.
You're looking at De Cesaris in front of you as you go past with Ayrton Senna up into the uphill turn 1, and Senna is now 28 seconds behind Alain Prost, 2.3 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell, who is lapping considerably faster than the Brazilian. In fact, 1.3 seconds faster. Mansell's got the problem of lapping De Cesaris, which wasn't a problem, to be fair to Ayrton Senna. The Italian moved over and let Senna through. Berger is 4th, Nannini is 5th, Boutsen is 6th, Patrese is 7th.
Yes, but to be fair, that was on the straight, and the Honda on the one bit of straight here. It was lucky for Senna that he came upon him at that time because the power just took him fast. Now, Mansell is confronted by De Cesaris' rear view, which is not a popular sight amongst other drivers. Piquet, well, they saw Piquet then soldiering back into the race, but he's lost a lot of time in the pits, and so whatever the mechanical drama has been with Piquet, he's effectively out of the race for the points, I would have thought.
Lap 44, Alain Prost leading by a long, long chalk now. In fact, we're waiting for a battle for second between Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell to come through, and there it is. But sandwiched between Senna and Mansell is De Cesaris.
Yes, but Nigel should, well, now you see, that's how illogical De Cesaris is. He moved over then when he didn't actually have to, because on the straight, Mansell with the Ferrari power was going to do it. So, you know, he doesn't even have really the intelligence to do things properly. Moves over when he doesn't have to. The only time he ever does. It's quite extraordinary.
And now, as you see from the caption, the gap between Ayrton Senna second and Nigel Mansell third is just over 1.1 seconds. And if Mansell can get up to the Brazilian and get past him, it will be tonight to deny him extra points in the World Championship. It will make things easier for Prost. And of course, Nigel Mansell, who has had a dreadful season with Ferrari, he's already had 8 failures to finish. His first win in Portugal, second in Mexico, third in Canada, and a couple of 4th places in Brazil and Italy. Will be up to second again, and I'm sure content to stay there in order to honour his promise to help Prost win the World Championship.
Yes, well, he's already done that today in a very big and effective way, as earlier as we saw with that tyre stop. And He's closed right up on Senna now. He's been catching him hand over fist when he's had the clear run. Behind them, he's pulled away a little bit from Berger, and Berger is now confronted with the back view of the Cesaris, and he will remember very well, I'm sure, what happened yesterday, because that not only messed up Berger's last qualifying lap, but more importantly, it gave him a really serious fright. And Berger into the pits. This is Berger in for tires. So he's just looked at the back view of the Cesaris and has obviously taken fright.
And Berger, significantly, is the first man who has stopped for a second set of tires. And remember that he started on harder Bs, so he's presumably come in for a second set, for a set of Cs first, which are softer, and has now changed them again. And we can expect Gerhard Berger soon to be the fastest man on the circuit, with Nigel Mansell on the left, catching and probably soon about to attack Ayrton Senna for second place. Ayrton Senna now 31 seconds just under behind Alain Prost on lap 46 out of 73, and as you can see, Nannini has come up into fourth position. You're looking down now at Senna on the left, Mansell on the right, McLaren, V10 Honda, Ferrari, V12 Ferrari. Two of the top men in Grand Prix racing. World champion Ayrton Senna leading Nigel Mansell. Mansell up to 6th in the World Championship with his 9 points in Portugal. Into the hairpin to complete the lap. Up from 3rd to 4th to 5th to 6th as quickly as that. Up to 155 miles an hour. Down to second gear for turn 1. Now the hairpin one. Out of that is second gear. Senna in second place, Mansell in third. If Mansell could just get the nose of his Ferrari under the wing of Ayrton Senna's McLaren Honda, he will be in an attacking position for second place. It's still Nannini fourth, Boutsen fifth, Patrese sixth, and Berger seventh on his new tyres. And Alain Prost leading by 31 seconds. This is lap 47. Incidentally, any animosity that may have existed between Senna and Mansell was dissolved in Portugal when Nigel Mansell, who's had many confrontations with Senna, shook his hand, embraced him. So, theoretically, Prost is getting on well with Senna. Senna is getting on well with Mansell. Until today, the atmosphere between Prost and Mansell wasn't so good, but it's going to be a lot better after this if Mansell continues his support role for the man who is leading the race. There he is, number 1, appropriately, in his 167th Grand Prix. The man has not only scored more World Championship points than anyone else, but scored more in one season than anyone else. And that was the year 1988 when Senna beat Prost for the World Championship. A quirk of the World Championship scoring situation. Mansell. Well, what are you going to be doing, James? You're Nigel Mansell and Senna's in front of you.
Well, he really is confronted with the same problem that we saw Prost have in the first 25 or so laps of the race. That the tremendous torque and the overall power of the Honda engine is just too strong out of these slow corners. And even though we see that the Ferrari is clearly a lot better than the McLaren in the quick corners, he can get in both cars, if you watch, get in very cleanly and more quickly than the McLarens. And that was Alboreto. As we see Prost in no hurry to lap people. But Mansell really is going to have to hound Senna, and maybe they could be contemplating another tyre stop, but maybe the Mansell will want to go in for another tyre stop and see if he can swing things around like that. But it is a problem. He needs either a mistake out of Senna or something pretty drastically heroic by himself. So here they are again. Still the same stalemate situation through the final hairpin and out onto the start-finish straight to complete 48 laps, I'm sorry. Now, Alain Prost, 30 seconds ahead. And that is Gruard out of the race, and he featured in Senna's pole position lap yesterday along with Nelson Piquet, who seemed to have stopped on the back of the circuit and be having a chat, well, rather a heated one from their cockpits, as Senna came flying by with not very much room to squeeze past. He certainly had to lift as they came into his view, and he wasn't very amused because in the middle of qualifying, from the cockpits of two racing cars with noisy engines, the settling of disagreements isn't really the place.
Lap 49 we are on now, the closing stages of. And Alain Prost can add any points that he scores in this race to the 10 scores that he already has, which total 60, because the best 11 scores out of the 16 World Championship races count for the title. Ayrton Senna cannot. He can only improve his score by finishing better than third, because in every race that Senna has finished this year, he has the incredible distinction of having been first, second or third. So if he stays where he is, he will add 2 points to his effective score. But if Nigel Mansell can deny him the second place, Ayrton Senna will be stuck on 78 points as the Grand Prix scene moves out of Europe. This is the last European event, over to Japan, followed by the 500th World Championship race in Adelaide in Australia. And that Senna will be very anxious to avoid. He needs to stay in this second position as Riccardo Patrese comes into the pits in his Williams for his second tyre stop.
Yes, and Berger now going well in 6th place on fresh rubber, 1:26.2, which is some 2 seconds a lap quicker than the Senna, Mansell, Nannini group are going. And Prost, in fact, has now tailed off his speed. He's half a minute ahead of Senna, and Prost has no doubt adjusted his speed to that of Senna and is lapping in very similar times, and I think 30 seconds is what he'd like to keep. Nelson Piquet back into the pits, but remember Piquet had a very long pit stop earlier and is really quite out of it. So Prost completes 50 laps. If drivers are thinking and teams are thinking of going for a second new set of tyres in this race, now is about the time they ought to be doing it. And a very difficult decision for Nigel Mansell. He's climbing all over Senna, but the trouble is, if he stops, Piquet, yes, that's end of the day's work for Nelson Piquet. Well, dejected looking, drooping shoulders there. But the situation for Mansell is, if he does stop, he comes out with Nannini, Boutsen, Berger and Patrese will all pass him on the road, and then Senna will have those as a sort of defence behind him. And really, I suppose Mansell's got to stay there until anybody else makes a stop, but I suspect he can go quicker if he can get past Senna. But at the moment, he's got the same problem that Prost had. The Ferrari just can't match the McLaren Honda in a straight line, and it means they really can't get into a position to attack. And that is a picture of the Ferrari pit on the inset, and Prost is coming in for a second set. So Prost wants the second set of tyres. His had gone off, but it's all academic for him. I think he could have stayed out but not run the risk of a wheel getting stuck or something like that. I'm not sure that this is a particularly clever plan. Nobody was going to catch 30 seconds even with fresh rubber on. The problem with pit stops that aren't essentially necessary is that all sorts of things can go wrong, such as and that was Mansell really right behind Senna, and he's starting to pressure him harder, and they've come to him. Prost is long gone. Prost got out well in the lead. There you are, 17 seconds still ahead of Ayrton Senna. And Senna's in trouble. Senna's engine is smoking, and that does not look like healthy smoke to me. We'll have a quick look, just in case it's an oil leak going onto an exhaust pipe, which can make a lot of smoke without any damage. But it didn't look very fit to me.
If that is the case, it's going to be a crushing defeat for McLaren. It doesn't look like it at the moment, though, because as you can see, Senna is maintaining his advantage over Nigel Mansell, who has now got Alessandro Nannini right behind him.
No, Senna's in trouble. Oil onto the tyre. I saw his car snake there in the corner, and that was serious trouble for Senna. There, he's letting Mansell go, and PK fighting his way through, but I think his right rear was getting oil on it. But it's water. It may well be. It's an oil or water radiator, and it looks like a stone probably has holed the radiator there for Senna.
Yeah, and in the process, he has held Alessandro Nannini back, who was about to attack Nigel Mansell. There you can see Nigel Mansell going through and taking Ayrton Senna, who moves across. There is the Benetton of Alessandro Nannini, which is in fourth position and was at the time. So now Ayrton Senna is surely going to have to come in, and Nannini has got Boutsen right behind him. Senna is coming in. This looks like Ayrton Senna's retirement, in which case it'll only be the third of the year. Into the pits then comes Ayrton Senna on lap 53. Down goes the disc in front of him to tell him to keep the brakes on to stop the wheels turning, and out he goes.
Yes, I think he's unaware. I think he thought he got a puncture or something. I think you'll find he's unaware that the reason his car was sliding about all over the place was that what appeared to me to be a holed radiator was leaking either oil or water onto the tyre. So Senna will soon find out again if that is the case, because it'll do it again to him, and he'll get all slippery slithery once more, and then he'll realise. I would think that his pit will also look at the tyre, realise he hasn't got a puncture, and even if they're not, hopefully somebody will be watching the monitor, because if they were watching their TV monitor, they'd be able to tell him. And into the pits comes Derek Warwick for more tyres.
And lap 53, Alain Prost now leads Nigel Mansell by 19 seconds. Nannini 3.5 seconds behind Mansell in third position, but less than a second ahead of Boutsen, who is fourth in the Williams. Fifth is Gerhard Berger. Sixth, Senna, of course, who we suspect is going to be retiring with water pouring out of the engine in front of the radiator, and that is Nigel Mansell chasing Alain Prost, but I'm sure content to stay where he is.
Yes, well, Prost, I don't know why he put the second set of tyres on. I'm sure it was unnecessary, but anyway, he's pulverised the lap record, of course, with a light fuel load and fresh tyres, and he is 25.1, which is some 2.7 seconds quicker than Mansell is going currently. Nannini is going pretty well. Nannini challenging Mansell behind, but Prost's lead now enormous. 21 seconds, but with this huge speed advantage of fresh tyres.
Yeah, the crowd, Senna, that's it. I saw the crowd clapping and cheering because they're Ferrari fans here, and Ayrton Senna is out of the Spanish Grand Prix on lap 54. Looking at the tyre, he's trying to work out what was happening. He's come in and changed tyres in the belief that that had overcome the problem, but the problem was one he wasn't aware of.
Yes, well, he was looking at the radiator then. He finally has worked out why it was sliding about all over the place. Because, of course, the whole radiator, you wouldn't have felt any loss of power initially until whichever fluid it was had run out. So there was Senna's car parked beside the track.
In World Championship terms, this is the best possible situation for Alain Prost and Ferrari, because Prost's rival, Ayrton Senna, is out of the race, no points at all. Prost is on target as he comes up to lap Derek Warwick in the Lotus, who is chasing one of the Ligiers. So Alain Prost is on target for 9 points, with his teammate Nigel Mansell 21 seconds behind him on this, the 55th lap out of 73. And that means to say that Ferrari will score 15 points if they stay where they are, which will bring their score up to 100, compared with the McLaren Constructors team level of 118. Nannini there in third position, fourth is Boutsen, fifth is Gerhard Berger, and Nannini is 2.5 seconds behind Mansell in second place.
Yes, and I dare say that either now or certainly after the race, Prost will think that luck isn't really running on his side at the moment, because in a race like this where he'd got Senna well beaten and there was every chance there is Ayrton Senna, that I think he'll still feel pretty secure on his way to the championship, but you know, strange things happen at the end of the season. A little lucky break here, a little bit of bad luck there, and can make a very big difference to the outcome. And Prost may well feel that while he's got Senna very well beaten, with Mansell almost certainly going to find a way past by the end of the race for second place, Senna wouldn't have scored anyway. I think he would have liked to have carried forward that very rare McLaren Honda breakdown to Suzuka, where the McLaren Honda will be a much tougher proposition for Ferrari to beat, because it's very much a power circuit, and of course it's Honda's home ground. McLarens do massive amount of testing there with a whole test team that lives there, and test engine after engine, but they also do chassis development work while they're at it. And really, I think Prost would have very much liked the breakdown to have waited for Suzuka. However, it's not to be, but the situation is that at least the championship stays alive for a minimum of one more race.
Each of the leaders now is lapping faster than the man who is following him. Thus, Prost lapped, well, marginally, as I say that, and completes the lap slower than Mansell, who's closed the gap a bit. But Nannini in third place is lapping slower than Mansell. Boutsen in fourth place is lapping slower than Nannini. In fifth place, Gerhard Berger has speeded up. And so now on lap 56, I apologise, Alain Prost is leading Nigel Mansell by 20 seconds. He's just lapped at 1 minute 28.4. He's slowed right down. His lap record is 125.177, which is 0.6 of a second faster than Ayrton Senna's previous lap record, and the first lap record, as opposed to a practice lap at Jerez, at over 110 miles an hour. That's the man who did it, Alain Prost, 3 times world champion, with that amazing number of world championship points, 652. The only man to have scored more than 600, and the only man, of course, to have therefore scored more than 650. And he's going to add 9 to that if he stays where he is now. Nigel Mansell's taken a whisker out of his lead. He's lap 57 now. It's down to just under 20 seconds. But Mansell is pulling away from Nannini, who is third. 3.5 seconds ahead of Boutsen fourth. Gerhard Berger in the sole McLaren running. There he is in fifth position, just 1 second behind Boutsen and catching him. You're looking now at the battle between Boutsen fourth and Berger fifth. Boutsen in the Williams Renault, the man who is to drive for Ligier next year. And Ayrton Senna walks in with the Grand Prix driver's trademark when he gets out of the cockpit, a water bottle to replace some of the massive amount of lost fluid.
That's right, he'll need several of those to get anywhere near the amount of fluid that he has lost, because particularly in this heat, the drivers dehydrate very fast. Now here is the big battle of the race, and Berger's got down the inside, and he was inside Boutsen, and Boutsen moved into him. Really, I have to say that Berger was fully alongside, had the inside line, and that to me looked like Boutsen's fault.
Well, Boutsen goes on, and that means that both McLarens are out of the race. Here's the replay. Let's have a look. Watch Berger on the right. Boutsen is on the left, running very wide indeed. He starts to move across as Berger comes level with him. They make contact front, contact rear. Berger spins off backwards into the gravel, out of the race, and they will both say it was the other's fault.
Yes, they certainly will do that. But Berger was having a bit of a go, but he was down the inside and he was fully inside, and there was plenty of room for Boutsen to move, to give him the space, right? Because Boutsen was lucky. It's not clever driving to hit another car, whoever fault it is, because you can never predict which one's going to jump up in the air and how they're going to come off. And I think Berger will have every justification in feeling aggrieved, but at the same time, he was having a go, and I think that was a bit of a sort of hard racing type accident. Berger is a hard racer, although I think the Boutsen could well have made the room, and they both could have still been in the race.
Well, here is some wonderful news for Leighton House fans. That's the ex-March team, and because Maurizio Gugelmin is up into the points in 6th position, and his teammate Ivan Capelli, as Ayrton Senna walks in, Capelli is in 8th position. They've had a quite dreadful season with just 1 points place for Ivan Capelli, a fine 2nd place in France, and Gugelmin, sorry, I forgot, Maurizio Gugelmin had finished 6th in Belgium. But anyway, there is Alain Prost, who is leading Nigel Mansell. They're keeping station, 20 seconds gap. Nannini is 3rd, 4 seconds behind Mansell, so he's not able to do anything about the Ferrari. And he was, if you remember, when they came up to Senna, right with Nigel Mansell. Boutsen in 4th position, having literally disposed of Gerhard Berger. Now in 5th place, it is the Williams of Riccardo Patrese, and in 6th place Maurizio Gugelmin, who is ahead of Aguri Suzuki, the Japanese driver. That's Berger's McLaren parked in the background on the gravel bed as Alain Prost goes through to complete his 59th lap. It's a 73-lap race. He's got to keep the Ferrari running. He is not in danger from Nigel Mansell, provided he, Alain Prost, can maintain his rhythm and the car is reliable.
Yes, absolutely. He's driving very well within himself, because remember, he's got a 3rd set of tyres on, whereas Mansell's on a fairly warm 2nd set. Now there is Mansell, and really Prost can extend his lead at will. He's just pulled another 2 seconds on that 1 lap off. Further ahead of Nigel Mansell, but of course they're not racing each other. Prost is really just cruising around. He would like to keep over 20 seconds in hand, because that gives him space if he has a bit of mechanical drama, like the gearbox loses a couple of gears or something like that. You know, these minor faults are prone to happen. Prost was a gear down, he lost 5th or 6th gear, one of the 2 in Portugal, and that just gives him a cushion.
There are still 1 or 2 top Grand Prix seats left for next year, and I hope the people that have it in their power to award them will be watching the progress of Derek Warwick, who was quite brilliant to start this race and is now in 8th position because he has passed Capelli and is behind Suzuki in 7th place. As you watch, race leader Alain Prost, and now Nigel Mansell.
Yes, and Warwick has just lapping quicker and quicker at the moment, and currently Derek Warwick is the fastest man on the circuit, and the only other person who has lapped quicker, if my memory is correct, than Warwick is Alain Prost. And so Warwick really having a charge, and let's hope he can get into the points, because he does deserve it. Now, there is Mansell. Now, Mansell, of course, is still racing hard, because he is still under pressure from Nannini. Too much pressure to have dared risk going for tyres, and it looks as if Mansell's going to try and go to the flag on what he's got. There's Nannini right behind him, and of course that's encouraging Prost to keep moving along. But Mansell, I think his lap time suggests that he is struggling, and the tyres he's got on, and I think Mansell could benefit now from a quick dive to the pits, take on fresh rubber. Let's see what's behind him. Yes, he might get out still in front of Boutsen, so with only Nannini to repass. And if you know, he's lapping in nearly 1:29 at the moment as Mansell. Prost could go down to a 25 dead on fresh rubber. That's 4 seconds, but we'll see if Mansell can lap a bit quicker than that. He's coming to complete another lap.
With Alain Prost leading, those of you who are statisticians may like to check this statement. Alain Prost can still win the World Championship with a 1st or a 2nd in the next 2 races if Senna does not bet a 3rd place. That's something to think about.
And incidentally, Derek Warwick is now lapping faster than Alain Prost. It looks as if I think Prost may well let him unlap himself, because Warwick's really charging. Prost has no reason to hurry, and he certainly doesn't want to get into a fight with Warwick. So if Warwick continues to go as well as he's going at the moment, then I suspect that Prost will move over and wave him through. Mansell still not lapping any quicker, and really struggling. He is some 15 seconds ahead of Boutsen, so it'd be very much touch and go if he could get away from Boutsen, but he is pulling away. That's if he went in for tyres.
Lap 62. You look at Alessandro Nannini in third place. Prost leading by 26 seconds. Mansell second, 4.2 seconds ahead of this man, Alessandro Nannini, the man who won the Japanese Grand Prix, by default some say, last year, but he won it. And he's in equal 7th position in the World Championship. He's already had a second, a third, and 2 fourths and a 6th, proving the reliability of the Benetton Ford. Sadly, Nelson Piquet is out of the Spanish Grand Prix, and at the present moment we have effectively running 10 cars. And Maurizio Gugelmin has just been passed by Aguri Suzuki, the Japanese driver, one of 2 of them who started the race. Satoru Nakajima was the other, that is Ayrton Senna. So, Aguri Suzuki in the Lamborghini V12 powered Larousse Lola is up into 6th position, which is where he finished in the British Grand Prix at Silverstone.
And therein, talking of Maurizio Gugelmin, therein lies a sad tale, because March, or rather the Leighton House team, Japanese own team, and there is Capelli being lifted out of his car, and that looks like exhaustion.
Or cramp, because the cockpit of the Leighton House car is notorious for its confined dimensions, and race after race after race, Capelli and Gugelmin have complained that they've got cramp, they can't move their legs, their movements are restricted, and heaven knows it's difficult enough to drive a car, Grand Prix car, when you can move about.
That's right. The cockpits are becoming a major bone of contention in these cars, because, of course, it's a huge design advantage if you can make it smaller and smaller because of the aerodynamics. It's not a weight problem, it's to do with the aerodynamics. You look how narrow the cars are and how low they want to get the front because of the driver's feet, so you don't want drivers with big feet or wide legs or anything like that. And neither Capelli nor Gugelmin have either of those problems, but the smaller they get the driver, the designers just build the cockpit even smaller, and they are pinching little drivers. And it's extremely bad, and regulations will have to be passed, because, well, you saw there the result. Capelli, who is not an unfit young man or anything, being lifted out of the car with exhaustion or cramp or both, simply because his cockpit is quite unsuitable for doing that level of physical work. And that brings us, of course, to a sad tale anyway, because the Leighton House team have been decreed from Japan, their owners, to be loyal to the steady but rather slow driving of Maurizio Gugelmin, and that really is a great shame for Grand Prix racing and for the team, because Gugelmin is not really a racer. He's a soldier around. And the March team have got a nice car, the Leighton House team, they've got a nice car, and they really should put a racing driver in it.
Incidentally, the size thing bodes well for Alan McNish, the Scotsman who, backed by McLaren, is in Formula 3000 and will hopefully be going on to Formula 1, and he makes Alain Prost look like Tarzan. He's very ideally, compactly built for Grand Prix racing, but so is Alain Prost, as you watch Thierry Boutsen, and Derek Warwick is up into 7th position. Alain Prost leads Nigel Mansell now by nearly 26 seconds, and oh my goodness, that is Derek Warwick's Lotus. What bitter gall for Derek and the team. He fought bravely. He decided, having thought yesterday morning about whether it would be wise even to practice after the dreadful accident that had happened to Martin Donnelly. He overcame his fears and inhibitions after he had been assured by his Lotus car designer Frank Durney that the necessary moves to beef up the components that may have led to Donnelly's crash had been taken, and then he drove superbly to qualify 10th. He was up to 7th place today, only for something to happen to the Lotus. And I know everybody's hearts will go out to this lion-hearted driver who, if anybody deserves a proper Grand Prix drive next year, it's Derek Warwick. So this is the Ferrari there of Alain Prost. He is on his 65th lap, currently on his way to his 43rd Grand Prix victory in the 167 Grand Prix he will have driven in when this race finishes. He crosses the line now, 65 laps completed, into lap 63, 73 lap race into lap 66. 73 lap race, and he's just gone round. He's coasting by his standards. 1 minute 29.179, which is 4 seconds slower than his fastest lap of the race on lap 54, which beat the previous lap record held by Ayrton Senna. Quite a lot of retirements, with Capelli out, Berger out, having been pushed off by Boutsen. There is an understandably grim-faced... No, Derek even finds the ability to smile and exchange a cheery word with the Williams mechanics as he walks in after what must be a very sad retirement. Alain Prost leads.
Yes, absolutely, Murray, but at the same time he's got every reason to grin, because he certainly put on a tremendous charge then towards the end of the race, driving very well indeed.
Well, that was Joan Villadel-Prat, who is the Tyrrell team manager. I don't know why that interview was being held, because sadly from his point of view, both Lacey and Nakajima are out of the race. And now that we're watching Alain Prost, whose teammate Lacey is going to be next year, I have to say again, as many people have said, that Lacey, whilst he's proved himself to be a very, very fast driver, has proved that he's got to have a lot more experience before he is worthy of driving in the same team as Alain Prost.
Yes, very much so. I mean, I think we dealt with all this last week, really, in the fact that it's a big problem for a young driver, particularly one of Sicilian parentage, so he will be regarded as an Italian by Ferrari and by the Ferrari fans. To come in as number 2 is really, I think, a very bad decision by Jean Alesi for himself, because when he had the chance of going to Williams in at least an equally competitive car to the Ferrari, where he would have been number 1 very much in the team, he would have been looked after, nurtured and helped despite the problems. In Ferrari it doesn't work like that, and I can't remember an Italian driver going to Ferrari as their number 2 driver who has furthered his career during that period at Ferrari. Some of them have recovered later, most of them have ended their careers at that point. Now, Alesi is too talented for that, so I'm not suggesting that a spell at Ferrari will finish his career, but I don't think it's going to improve it, particularly as Alain Prost, who is the master politician and diplomat, will be at the team. He is number 1, and he will make jolly good sure that it stays that way. And in doing that, I dare say on the political front, he'll be outmaneuvering Alesi, and Alesi has a spectacularly fiery temperament. Very Sicilianly emotional he is, and when things aren't going right, he can get very out of control, and that certainly won't help his position at Ferrari. And Prost could well be winding him up for that. Prost's a very clever man. If he feels threatened by Alesi, I'm quite sure he'll find ways other than on the racetrack to sort Alesi out, and they will all be painless.
5th win of the year coming up for number 1 Alain Prost in his first year with Ferrari, having won in Brazil, then in Mexico, then in Canada. That brilliant win in Britain, and it looks as though it's going to be number 5 here in Spain.
So just really at the end, so to summarise really Alesi's decision, tremendous talent and everything, and of the 3 teams he managed to have contracts with, he quite, in my opinion, picked quite clearly the worst one to go to, and that probably says something about the man's psyche, because he is an emotional chap. Ferrari is an emotive thing, particularly for a Sicilian-born young man, and it's already seems to me to have led him into a very silly decision when you consider the choices on offer to him, which were a Tyrrell Honda with Honda power and a Williams Renault with arguably the equal best engine in the business, very fine chassis, experienced team, and really I think even if he didn't like it at Tyrrell, he certainly would have had just a way better chance to do well at Williams than he ever will at Ferrari, while Prost is there, and also while the Ferrari management are in the disarray in which they currently are.
As a result of the bitter criticism by this man, Alain Prost, who is now on his 69th lap, as I said, on his way to his 5th victory of 1990, and his 44th victory in his incredible career in his 167th Grand Prix. Mansell is not far off 30 seconds now behind Alain Prost. In second place, Ferrari are on their way to a maximum of 15 Constructors' Championship points. Nannini is third, Boutsen is in fourth position, Patrese is fifth, Suzuki is sixth, Gugelmin and Larini are seventh and eighth.
Yes, and the interesting thing is that Mansell, Nannini and Boutsen are all really struggling around and sliding about, and Patrese in fifth place, because they didn't come in for a second set of tyres. And I have no doubt whatsoever that they would have had overall faster race times if they'd invested that 20 seconds inclusive of decelerating and accelerating that a pit stop takes in stopping for tyres. Prost has made Prost win very comfortable. The only person who shouldn't be criticised in that decision not to stop is Mansell, because Mansell always had the upper hand there. And I tell you, like, Patrese has stopped twice and he's still struggling, but then he's been out on his third set quite a long time now. But Murray just gave me the nod on that. But really, I think Mansell was okay, because Mansell always had the upper hand on those other drivers, and if he'd gone for a stop and they hadn't, by putting himself behind them, he may well have struggled to get back past. Now, the same could not be said of Nannini and Boutsen. Right, and Boutsen, of course, finally getting his comeuppance, because he's moving to Ligier, and one can't help saying, although not unkindly, they really do deserve each other.
Well, Alain Prost deserves the Ferrari that he's got at the moment. It's providing him with a race-winning ride, and to be brutally honest, although he started off in second place on the grid and was fastest by a second in the warm-up this morning, I don't think many people would have forecast a race like this, nor would they have forecast that Ayrton Senna would have a problem. Now, what we don't know is whether it was a stone that came up or something, a bit of debris, and hit the radiator or one of the delivery pipes to cause that water leak, or whether it was a Honda engine problem. It's more than unusual for Honda to have an engine problem, but anyway, the result has been that Ayrton Senna retires and scores no points in Spain, and that's only the third time this season it has happened to him. Alain Prost goes on very much to keep his World Championship hopes alive, because he is on lap 71 now out of 73. He's leading Nigel Mansell by that very comfortable cushion of 28 seconds.
And Nannini has dropped back just a little bit from Mansell. He was closing, but they've now sort of settled down. The gap has really varied round about, hasn't really got closer than 3 seconds recently. It's now 5.5. But there's no doubt that second, third and fourth men are all really struggling. They're going very slowly, sliding about a lot. And it's not a wear problem, so I don't expect that we'll get any sudden punctures right at the end. And of course, we've only got just over 2 laps to go now. So Alain Prost, for him, what must be almost an annoyingly easy win after once they've got past the first pit stop, and he just managed to stay ahead of Senna as Senna emerged from his tyre stop, who incidentally used absolutely the right tactics. The moment Prost had gone, he went the very next lap, and that was absolutely the right thing to do. If he'd waited any longer, Prost would have had a bigger lead. But once he got over that hump, helped by Mansell, of course, who led him through into the lead at that point and suffered for his selflessness himself, because Senna jumped him, and in a fine piece of driving, and there wasn't a lot Mansell could do. It was only because everybody was so close together. He was doing the right thing for the team, and he was unlucky to get jumped. But he has duly come back all the way to second place, and so all is well. But I'm sure Prost would have preferred the luck element that's taken Senna out in this race to have happened in Suzuka, because I expect he feels very much that Mansell could have taken second from Senna, and third place for Senna would be exactly the same result as the one he's got, because Senna does not add to his score for that, so he might just as well have been running around in third place with a healthy car and saving up the breakdown for Suzuka. I'm sure that's how Prost will see it, and he's worked very hard and not had much reward for his efforts over the last 2 or 3 Grand Prix. And this time he's worked very easy and he's got 9 points, and I'm sure he'd rather spread it out a bit.
Well, Honda will be doing everything they can to ensure that Senna and Berger have a clear, fast and reliable run at their home Japanese Grand Prix, where they haven't always won. And now Alain Prost in the V12 Ferrari crosses the line to complete his 72nd lap here at Jerez on this very demanding 2.6-mile circuit. And he is in a commanding lead with only 2.5 miles now between him and his 5th Grand Prix win of 1990.
Yes, and what started as a very hard and competitive race up till about 25 laps when the pit stops arrived, then really when Prost got the upper hand, has been very much all Alain Prost, and a fairly processional race, because although there's been some work behind with Mansell defending second place, Nannini attacking a little bit, there hasn't been any really heavy racing, so good first half. But the important thing is that we can go on to Suzuka with the World Championship still alive and still with some very hard racing to be done, to be fought out between Senna and Prost before the championship is finally settled. And we may still even be able to take it all the way to Adelaide. 2 more Grand Prix to go this season. Suzuka first and Adelaide. The championship could go all the way.
But just a little bit of the way to go now is Alain Prost on lap 73 in this 73-lap race, having flew perfectly to take second position on the grid, fastest in the warm-up this morning. And now, as he comes round the last hairpin to see the checkered flag and win for Ferrari in Spain, and to add the maximum 9 points to the 60 he already has, to make his 11 race score 69 to Ayrton Senna's 11 race score of 78. It's still alive, and it's still very exciting indeed, as Nigel Mansell there comes through to make it a first and second, and a maximum 15 points for Ferrari. He won't be at all unhappy with that either. Now we wait with Mansell and Prost second and first home again. There is Alessandro Nannini in third position, and he is going to finish about 11 seconds ahead of the 4th place man Thierry Boutsen, who crosses the line now, and in 5th position will be his teammate Riccardo Patrese, and that is 4th and 5th for Williams, and in 6th place is Suzuki in the Lola Lamborghini. Well, a magnificent win for Alain Prost. There he is, touring home, and he's very happy indeed. The championship is still alive.
Quanti a Maranello non hanno mai mollato, quindi lottiamo fino alla fine. Poi comunque la stagione è stata una bellissima stagione, una bellissima prestazione.
Ma questo ha un sapore di rivincita almeno a chi non credeva in queste potenzialità.
Ma lasciamo perdere le rivincite, quello che ci interessa è andare bene.
Ecco, benissimo, io direi però a questo punto che non si può fare a meno di nominare anche una parte degli uomini che hanno contribuito a questo successo, e li andiamo a sentire adesso. Sono solitamente uomini che non vengono conosciuti: Zini, Antonelli, Pedrini, tutti quelli che hanno fatto questo cambio gomme eccezionale, cambio gomme che ha contribuito sicuramente in buona parte al successo di questa Ferrari, che è riuscita a scatenare tutta la sua potenza non appena la macchina si è messa in prima posizione dopo il cambio gomme. Un commento così, no, non è possibile, no, fermo, almeno non mi dire neanche allora, questo cambio gomme eccezionale, allora parla per tutti, è possibile che tutti si commuovano, oggi non riesce a parlare nessuno, no,
non è stato eccezionale il cambio di gomme, è stato eccezionale tutto il lavoro, direi.
Sì, certo, tutto il lavoro, ma su quello avevamo già parlato ovviamente. Un cambio di gomme però che vi ha riportato in testa a questo tipo di classifica e che ha contribuito notevolmente a questo successo. Ecco, anche Nardon, di solito così schivo, 2 parole almeno per questo successo. È il tecnico che cura la macchina di Mansell, che tra l'altro ha fatto una bellissima gara.
Una bellissima gara, è piena di generosità, l'ha fatto passare e non ha voluto ostruirlo qua davanti ai box. È una bella gara, sono contento di lui.
Beh, sì, sei contento di lui come il papà per un bambino. Dimmi una cosa, per quanto riguarda Giappone e Australia?
Un'altra volta primo e secondo,
Non c'è dubbio, così mi piace, l'ottimismo, bellissimo questo. Un altro del cambio gomme di quest'oggi, giovanissimo, quanti anni ha?
25.
È stato bello?
Ma non c'è male, andasse sempre così.
Ecco Mario, io volevo anche riservare appunto alcune interviste a quelli che solitamente sono ignoti. È entrato in questo momento questo il rumore della macchina di Mansell, seguito da Nannini, stanno andando verso il parco chiuso, dopodiché ci sarà la cerimonia del podio, che spero proprio potremo vedere e gustare.
Ecco,
perché...
ti avverto che per quel che riguarda le nostre postazioni telecronisti noi non abbiamo più immagini in questo momento e ci deve essere stato qualche problema, forse nell'entusiasmo di raggiungere l'area della Ferrari qualcuno avrà rotto un cavo. Fatto sì è che noi le immagini non le abbiamo.
Speriamo non sia stato
vediamo
Prost,
se stanno probabilmente adesso tornando. Vediamo.
Guardare sulla quanta pagina devo vedere.
Ecco, abbiamo trovato le immagini, finalmente siamo su Prost che sta entrando in box e sta bevendo e quindi penso che potremo vedere le prenotazioni. Vai avanti con la tua cronaca.
È una scena bellissima. Allora vi spiego, va un po' spiegata. C'è il signor Perry che è il soggetto che segue da sempre la Ferrari, è il portafortuna, di solito per portafortuna usano i bambini, in questo caso invece il bambino di quanti anni?
Questo mi fa molto piacere.
Quanti anni?
Quanti anni di cosa?
Quanti anni hai?
Quanti anni ho? Bisogna anche appunto contarli.
Presa poco.
84 mi pare di averne.
Ecco, 84. Da quanto sta seguendo questo tipo di gara?
Prima che le comincia, dal 1950 la Formula 1 sempre da avere.
Ma è mancato uno.
E quest'anno sono 10 tutti quelli dell'Europa.
Ecco, un commento da uno effettivamente che la segue da sempre questa Ferrari, che aspettava da tantissimo questo tipo di doppietta.
Sì?
Cosa ha provato oggi?
Cos'è?
Provato oggi vedendo
C'è una emozione,
sì.
Perché il cuore dice
calmo,
il cuore
Quindi,
dice
probabilmente è stato un cardiotonico quello di oggi, insomma.
sì.
Qui sono tutti intorno a questo podio, stanno facendo una premiazione per conto loro e adesso stanno aspettando che arrivino i due piloti Ferrari arrivino sul podio e ci sono appunto questi fedelissimi che stanno seguendo la Ferrari da parecchio tempo. Da dove arrivate?
Da Montemarciano.
Ma la seguite da sempre?
Sempre, tutta Europa. Noi la Formula 1 tutta Europa la seguiamo.
Quindi quest'oggi è stata una gioia immensa.
È una gioia immensa.
Ecco, vediamo di sottolinearla questa gioia, va? Perché sennò la gente non può capire.
Senti, ma queste note di tu sei sempre nel mio cuore,
sì, non è male, voglio dire, probabilmente un po' strappacore, diciamo pure un po' demicisiana, però bella, perché vera, spontanea, da ferraristi che sognano da sempre questo tipo di vittorie. Adesso ci avviciniamo al podio, le immagini sono arrivate, Mario?
Sì,
ecco.
Prost seguito adesso da Fiorio, da Mansell e dal felicissimo Nannini sono apparsi sul balcone.
Sentiamo anche il tecnico voluto da Prost, questo Nichols stupendo che ha dato un grosso impulso tecnico a questa Ferrari. What do you feel today?
It's fantastic. It's exactly the result we needed. Keep the championship alive for Suzuka and Adelaide.
Do you think this yesterday? No, it's impossible time. Nichols che di solito sempre così serio, scoppiato in una risata, dice impossibile da pensare questo tipo di vittoria. Sapevamo di essere nel giusto, ma non pensavamo di avere un successo così pieno quest'oggi. Nannini anche felicissimo.
È stato sostituito prima la marsigliese, adesso l'inno italiano per la vettura.
Ecco, sarebbe bello vedere, non è che io voglio guardare la festa, stupendo, se Nannini sta pensando che bello sarebbe avere una tuta rossa invece che blu, che è mancato pochissimo, dopo glielo chiederò, anche se lui ogni volta dice basta con questa storia della Ferrari, mi va benissimo così, e in effetti una bella gara la sua, quindi avremo un altro personaggio che non necessariamente per essere simpatico deve essere dotato di motore Ferrari, Giuseppe Nannini è uno che ha gestito bene la sua storia, questo suo avvicinamento alla Ferrari, con molta tranquillità, ha detto è un sogno e rimane un sogno sempre.
Hai notato la stretta di mano ripetute tra Mansell e Prost?
Ma qui in questo ambiente è inutile che poi cominciamo a fare, le polemiche durano lo spazio di 4 giorni, dopodiché si ricomincia da capo, le alleanze si rinforzano, alla fine ognuno capisce anche chi ha la testa più dura, che tutto sommato il gioco di squadra vale e paga sempre. Anche però si rende conto che non vale la pena parlare sopra le righe. Mansell sappiamo che è in procinto per approdare alla Williams, il comunicato deve essere dato in settimana, almeno così pare. Butzen è già ufficialmente della Ligier e l'unico dubbio sarà appunto chi dei due della Ligier dovrà fare fagotto.
Bellissima cosa,
è bellissima, ancora ha ripetuto un replay proprio di abbraccio in modo che non ci fossero dubbi al riguardo. Poi cercheremo di avere le interviste per le trasmissioni di questo